All right, good morning, everybody. I'm going to call our meeting to order and note for the record that we do have a full quorum of commissioners here. If you brought one of these, you may want to silence it to avoid embarrassment. And I'm going to ask everybody to please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, I'm going to look for a motion to consider or to approve our agenda.
I make a motion to approve.
Second.
Motion is second. All those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Moving on to our consent agenda. Our consent agenda is our kind of our routine business that we take care of bills to be paid, etc. If there's anybody from the public that would like to make a comment on the consent agenda, now is your opportunity. All right. Any commissioners want to pull anything or comment on the consent agenda?
Mr. Chair, I'll just make one comment to recognize. I saw that our Public Defender's Office annual report was in there, and just wanted to take the opportunity to thank Tracy Smith and her team, and for that matter, our public advocate system as well. Just it was good to read that annual report and see the dedication and service that they provide to our community, and just the vital nature that they have to our justice system, but also how that having that office is good stewardship of our citizens' tax dollars. Just highlight one element out of their their office expenditures were $4.7 million, but that helps close a lot of different cases. So the average cost per closed case was $589 in 2023, and that takes a lot of hard work. And if we didn't have them, we'd be farming out those cases to the local bar, which would charge an hourly rate and far exceed $589. So just wanted to highlight Tracy Smith and her team and thank them for their service to the county.
Well said. Thank you, Commissioner. Any other comments? Look for a motion.
I'd move approval.
Second.
Motion second by Benninga. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Moving on now to our regular business. Look for, we'll be considering a motion to issue a proclamation declaring May 5th through May 11th as National Correctional Officers and Employees Week in Minnehaha County. Morning, Jamie.
Morning, Jamie Gravitt, Juvenile Justice Center. Warden Matson from the jail. We'd ask that you approve this proclamation, and I'll read it for you. Whereas correctional officers are trained law enforcement professionals dedicated to maintaining safe correctional facilities and ensuring public safety, and whereas correctional facilities across the U.S., both civilian and military, public and private, adult and juvenile, are run by highly qualified and experienced individuals with a deep understanding of the challenges within the profession. And whereas correctional officers and employees are responsible for the custody, care, and rehabilitation of thousands of offenders every year, as well as maintenance of a safe and secure facility. Whereas correctional officers and employees serve admirably in many different capacities, including jail administrators, wardens, chaplains, nurses, supervisors, social workers, teachers, managers, and directors. And whereas correctional officers and employees teach, train, mentor, counsel, and treat thousands of offenders. And whereas correctional officers and employees provide offenders with direction, hope, and a new focus while assisting with reentry and life outside corrections. And whereas correctional officers and employees rise to meet any challenge and serve this honorable profession nobly and admirably, and now, therefore, be it proclaimed, correctional officers and employees deserve the recognition for their service and should be commended by leaders in the profession and the public and our elected officials for the tremendous job they do and exceptional performance of duties under the most difficult of circumstances. Dated this 7th day of May, 2024.
All righty. Thank you, Jamie, for that. Anything to add, Warden?
Just anytime I get an opportunity to shed light on our corrections staff and what they do, I'm going to take that opportunity. We have amazing corrections officers, juvenile corrections officers. They really do a thankless job. They're on the front line every day dealing with things that a lot of people just don't want to deal with, and they do it professionally and with pride. So hats off to all of our correction people in the county.
Well said, thank you. All right, Commissioner Bender.
I would just like to thank both of you for your leadership, and just personally, one of the things that I've really learned being on the commission is how much compassion folks that get called into public service, in particular in these two very, very difficult areas. They serve in a really difficult 24/7 environment and meet people when many times they're at their very lowest point in their lives, and have a tremendous opportunity to help those folks through that time. And I just have not had a lot of experience outside of serving on the commission with folks in public safety, in particular in corrections, and it's been a great and humbling opportunity to work alongside some of you guys, so thank you.
Thank you.
All right, public comment on this item. All right, so look for a motion to approve the signing of the proclamation.
So move.
Second.
Motion and a second. Call the roll.
Benega.
Aye.
Kipley.
Aye.
Bender.
Aye.
Blindberg. Aye. Karski.
Aye, motion carries.
Thank you.
Thank you, gentlemen. Now I have a public hearing to consider a special event malt beverage and on-sale wine retailer's license for Siouxland Renaissance Association at the W.H. Lyon Fairgrounds on June 1st and 2nd, 2024. Again, Kim, I spoke slowly enough so you could get to the podium. Welcome.
Good morning, Commissioners. Kim Christensen with the Auditor's Office. We received a special event application from the Siouxland Renaissance Festival for their festival held in early June out at the W.H. Lyon Fairgrounds. The license would allow the sale of wine and malt beverages to be consumed on site. The application was reviewed by the Sheriff's Department, State's Attorney, and Planning Department. No questions or concerns were reported. And I talked to a representative from the Siouxland Renaissance Festival yesterday. They would really hope you would consider this request, as it would add a lot of enjoyment to their festival. They were unable to attend today.
All right, questions for Kim? This is a public hearing, so I'll take proponents for the issuance of this special malt beverage and on-sale wine license. Anybody here to speak in favor of it?
I don't see anybody dressed appropriately.
Yeah, I know, right? Any opponents? All right, public comment. Commission action.
Make a motion to approve.
Second?
Motion and a second, please call the roll.
Blindberg.
Aye.
Bender.
Aye.
Kipley.
Aye.
Benega.
Aye.
Karski.
Aye, motion carries. We now have a second Judicial Circuit Court annual brief. Judge Robin Howman and Carl Tones. Welcome.
Good morning, Commissioners. Robin Howman, presiding judge for the Second Judicial Circuit. I'm here to provide some information and support and clarification for the budget that we have proposed to the County Commission. Let's see, how do I do this? Scroll down. There we go. Just an update for you on all of the judges and staff that we have in the courthouse. As you're probably aware, during the last legislative session, we got some additional staff support, and I'm going to talk about that in a minute. Last year, we did receive an additional magistrate judge, and Jonathan Ledegy was selected for that position. He started last July, so we have been happy to have that additional resource. You can see we had 2 new circuit court judges that were granted during this last legislative season. Those applications are in process. Actually, May 10th is the application deadline for applications to the Judicial Qualifications Commission to fulfill those positions. Those interviews are expected to be held the last 2 days of June, and we anticipate that the governor would make a selection at some point in July, and we would be able to onboard that new staff, those new appointed positions, probably sometime in mid-August, September timeframe. This is just an update on the number of cases that were filed in the Second Judicial Circuit for the last fiscal year. As you can see, Minnehaha County still has about 35% of the case-wide distribution throughout the state. And it's in part, that case distribution and caseload that drove our budget request. Frankly, we were blown away by this last legislative season. In the governor's budget was 1 additional circuit court judge and 1 deputy clerk. And some Sioux Falls legislators made a motion, it's my understanding, on the last day of the budgeting portion of the session to increase that to 2 circuit court judges, 3 deputy clerks, and 1 staff attorney. We're greatly pleased with the additional resources, but that has kind of put us into a little bit of scramble, now trying to find a place to house them. And I'll talk about that in a few moments, but I did just want to highlight for you some of the reasons that support that additional staff, because there were a number of factors. The first, of course, is always our increased population in the Sioux Falls metropolitan area. It's been increasing about 7,000 residents per year. That doesn't always translate into a corresponding increase in caseload, but it is one of the major factors that we look at to determine how our case growth is going to occur in the next year. The second reason is the rise in violent and serious crime. Of those violent and serious crimes, only burglary and rape have decreased over the last couple of years. In every other violent and serious felony category, those numbers have increased at least 22 and up to 92% over the last couple of years. So that increase in those types of crimes really tax our judicial resources, because those types of crimes take a lot more time to process, take a lot more courtroom time, and so we do need additional resources to respond to that growth. Another is legislative changes. For instance, a couple of years ago, the legislature approved a statute commonly referred to as stand your ground. What's required in a stand your ground situation is that the court have an additional hearing, which actually results in a mini trial before the trial to determine whether or not that stand your ground statutory provision applies in that particular case. Those hearings can take anywhere from half a day to 1 or 2 days, and so those are additional requirements that the court has to have those hearings, and that also supports our additional resources that we've received. Another reason is our specialty courts. We have 4 specialty courts in the Second Judicial Circuit, and we have 7 judges that support those courts. Those 7 judges spend approximately 1 day per week on their specialty court duties. They do not get a corresponding decrease in the cases that are assigned to them due to their specialty court duties, so they just have to manage their schedule in a way to accommodate that additional, essentially 1 day's worth of work each week. So these additional judicial resources will allow us to relieve some of the burden that the judges who are assigned to specialty courts have. We've also had a corresponding increase in our interpreter cases. I'll talk about that in more in a few moments. But in general, those interpreted cases take about 50% longer than other cases, just due to the nature of that interpreted type of hearing. We've also had an increase in pro se litigation. That's individuals who are representing themselves. We see that mostly in civil cases and in divorce cases. 72% of our divorce cases have one party that is not represented by counsel. And 21% of those cases have both sides who are representing themselves. And so those do also take considerably longer for our judges and court staff to process, particularly for clerks. They have a lot more questions and a lot more interaction with those pro se parties. And the judges find that they have longer hearings, sometimes substantially longer, when the parties are not represented by counsel. And then the seventh reason that those additional resources are justified is the tremendous growth that we've been seeing south of 57th Street here in our metropolitan area. We're anticipating that perhaps the case filings in Lincoln County will grow an overall 20% over this next fiscal year. Equally important are the additional staff that we've received as far as clerks and our staff attorney. Those new judges and our magistrate judge from last year all need that clerk support in the courtroom, but we also need that support for our clerks in general. We took a survey on what ended up being a fairly slow week last summer, and just to give you a perspective of how busy our clerks are, during that 1 week, again a light week, they had 921 counter visits, 1,361 substantive emails, and 1,383 phone calls. And those were with people outside of the courthouse. So litigants and the public. Did not include any conversations, emails, or visits or phone calls from other court staff or from judges. So that support that we'll get for those additional 3 clerks will be very welcomed in the courthouse next door. But again, that caused us to update some priorities and some building projects. You heard about those from Mark the other day. But again, we're anticipating a remodel of our law library. We're converting 2 court reporter offices to a judicial chambers. When we got Judge Ledegy last summer, we had identified a project to make what was a small office and a large judicial chambers into 2 similar sized offices for 2 magistrate judges. We've also identified, because of this additional clerk staff, if we make a small remodel to our clerks on the 2nd floor, we'll be able to accommodate that additional staff, as well as we think better serve the public in that space. And that records project, we're going to delay that for a moment, and I will talk about it in a few moments. A couple of other things that were highlighted in our budget package. I'm only going to address the ones that have resulted in an increase in our projections over the next year. And that first category is court-appointed attorneys for adults. And that occurs in felony and misdemeanor cases, in mental illness, and in involuntary commitments. On those criminal cases, that's when the public defender's office and the public advocate's office are not able to represent an individual for one reason or another, and we have to appoint private counsel. That's where this category comes in. And then again, also with mental illness, and then for all involuntary committals. The reason that we're projecting an increase over this year, or a proposed budget increase for next year, is that we anticipate the court-appointed attorney hourly rate to increase. All state employees are receiving a 4% cost of living adjustment, and that generally translates to an adjustment in the court-appointed attorney's fees. It's currently $115. We anticipate that amount is going to increase to $120 per hour. So we need to factor in that increase in the attorney fee rate. And we also project an overall increase of about 15% in this particular case category. That includes, right now, we have a 4% increase over last year in involuntary committals. We have an 11% decrease in mental illness cases. We have an 18% increase in felony criminal cases, and a 19% increase in misdemeanor cases. So to translate forward to next year, if those increases hold, we believe that an additional $50,000 would likely cover that increase in case filings, as well as the attorney's hourly rate. And we do also project already a $7,000 overrun for the current budget year, and I believe that's included in your packets. The next category is court-appointed attorneys for children and for juveniles. And this occurs also when the public defender's office and public advocate's office are conflicted, which happens quite frequently in abuse and neglect cases, because in those cases you sometimes have multiple parents, you have children that need to be represented, so oftentimes in those cases we are appointing outside counsel. Currently, the abuse and neglect cases are showing a 35% increase over last year. And these are also cases that are high cost and high stakes. It's a type of case area where one or two cases that are very difficult with a number of players, with court-appointed attorneys going through a dispositional hearing and an adjudicatory hearing could result in tens of thousands of dollars for just one case. So it is an area that's a little bit difficult to project, but it is one that is certainly one that is important to our community. Juvenile cases, we've had a 50% increase in chins, but a corresponding 49% decrease in citations. So factoring all of those three categories together, we anticipate about a 15% increase in this area. Again, we'll also anticipate that the hourly rate is going to increase from $115 to $120. So we're projecting about a $50,000 increase for next year over what we have this year. We also believe that that's probably appropriate because we are going to have a substantial overrun in this category of about $53,000 for this current budget year. The next category is psychological evaluations, and this category looks and covers the cost of competency evaluations when individuals may or may not be competent to proceed to trial. An evaluation needs to be conducted. When someone has pled guilty or been convicted of a sex offense, a psychosexual evaluation is required by statute. And then also in juvenile cases, psychological evaluations are sometimes conducted prior to disposition. OPA and the PDO do cover some of these in their own budgets, but the court also has a budget for that. In the last couple of years, we have averaged about 66 of these type evaluations per year. So far this year, we've already had 25. So if that continues, there could be as many as 100 of those evaluations that are required to be ordered in this year. The cost of those evaluations has also increased about 30%. They used to be about $1,600. Currently, they're running about $2,100. One of the drivers of the cost is likely due to the lack of providers who do psychosexual evaluations and competency evaluations. We've known that the lack of providers has been an issue over the last couple of years, and we feel like we've done everything we can, both in the Second Circuit, State Court Administration, and we now have the Department of Social Services, who is also trying to identify additional providers. None of those efforts have been very successful, and we're really down to about 3 or 4 providers who do the competency evaluations and about 2 who do the psychosexual evaluations. So we're recommending a $90,000 increase in this category, and we're projecting that the current shortfall for this year is going to be about $110,000. The next category, just briefly, is our interpreter expenses. We're projecting or anticipating an increase of about $30,000 for interpreters. We have 51 languages that were interpreted in the courthouse last year, and we have increased our average number of court appointments daily from 13 to now 15.7 per day. So that would account for the increase that we believe is appropriate for interpreters. Finally, that last item, number 5, is our records project. I don't know how I'm just doing Mr. Hager's here. So anyway, you have it in your packets. The records project is something that we are proposing an increase of $50,000 over last year. Just to summarize this, what could be very dry issue, we have about 8,000 cubic feet of records that are to be kept. They are housed at a facility here in Sioux Falls. We estimate that 8,000 cubic feet is about 6,000 bankers' boxes. The current cost is about $50,000 per year to store those records. And we have just embarked on what we're calling a records cleanup project to identify the records that can be destroyed pursuant to state law. We also have some concerns about where those records are being stored and the dramatic increase in cost over the last couple of years. So we did just a test a couple of weeks ago, and we took out 84 boxes that we thought could be destroyed. That resulted in some substantial charges that we were not aware of, and is frankly really daunting. If we were to withdraw all of the records from the facility, we think that might cost about $50,000 based on their current, what they had charged us. So our proposal on this records project is essentially that we continue to work with the county administration office to find an appropriate storage facility for these records. And as part of that appropriate storage facility, we also do our cleanup project, which could result in us destroying about 1,000 to 1,500 boxes, thereby reducing the actual storage needs that we have into the future. And then our proposal long-term would be, I know a couple of years ago we proposed this scanning project that had a bill of about $2 million. We would propose some smaller version of that scanning project to be implemented each year over the next 10 or 15 years to essentially eliminate the need to store these records at any time in the future. So to accommodate all of those efforts, our proposal for this next year is to increase that record storage line item by $50,000. And I believe that is it. Are there any questions?
Commissioners, questions? It was all such good news.
I know. I almost wanted to say, Carl, you're up today instead of me.
Mr. Chair, I guess I can just ask a clarifying question
Sure.
on the records project.
Yes.
I take it, I appreciate the effort to clean up and get to what actually needs to be stored rather than just storing things for the sake of it. But I take it there's the fee the facility charges just for getting your boxes out. Is that what was
Yes.
Unanticipated? And so there's some fixed cost, even if we had a place to put them today, there's still some closeout expenses with that entity to their work in identifying the boxes, pulling them, and
Yes.
delivering them to you.
And the costs that we paid were in addition to us having someone else go retrieve the boxes and bring them to us, not the facility itself. So these were just additional charges for, box identification. And then once they realized we weren't sending these boxes back, they had an additional fee that was for a box that wouldn't be returned. So I think there's a lot of work that we need to do to bring a conclusion to the current project and then to proceed forward with perhaps a different storage option and perhaps the scanning to make it more affordable long-term for the county.
Yeah, I appreciate the dialogue on this. I remember last year it was just kind of X number of boxes and it's going to be a lot of scanning and it's just a big dollar figure. This seems like a more nuanced plan that has some incremental steps to it that will be a little bit easier to swallow, but we'll have to walk through each of those steps in the budgeting process and see what we can tackle this year.
And we've already been working with Tom to identify some of the steps that we need to take moving forward.
Commissioner Blindberg.
Thank you. I was just going to follow up on Joe's question. Of those 80-some boxes, were you able to destroy those then?
I believe we were able to destroy all 84.
Okay.
Yep. And based on our current estimation, like I said, at least 1,000, maybe 1,500 additional boxes could be destroyed currently. And then there are destruction schedules, so there would be additional boxes in future years that every year we'd have some boxes drop off.
And then if I could, just one more question. Back at the beginning, when you were discussing the judges, the 2 new judges selected, will they have to run for, and will they be elected? How does that work with the
So
judges?
the appointment of new judges, because these are newly created positions, these judges will go through the Judicial Qualifications Commission. It's a commission that applicants submit an application, the commission reviews those applications. They identify applicants that they'd like to interview. There's a background check and then interviews. And then that commission is tasked with recommending names to the governor. The governor then interviews those applicants and then selects the applicant for each position. Then they will be up for election in about 6 years, along with all of the other judges in the state. So depending on the time a position is formed or becomes vacant, they generally go through that appointment process.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you for that question, Commissioner. I think most of us aren't aware of the full scale of that process, so. Yeah.
It's about a 6-month process for everything from start to finish. So that the last day of the legislative season, once the budget was signed by the governor, the JQC noticed those 2 open positions, and we started running a couple of months ago, getting those positions filled.
Thank you.
All right.
Mr. Chair, I'll just follow on that to just maybe if you can give us a little more background on what you foresee. Again, such a high case volume, and those 2 judges will make some dent in it. But can you give us a sense, as Minnehaha County Commission, we're only part of the puzzle of what you're overseeing and how you'll proportionally allocate those judge resources to our friends in Lincoln County as well, and where do you see that balance?
Sure. So as you may recall from prior years, we work on what's called a rotation system here in the Second Circuit. We believe it allows us to be more efficient with fewer resources. So currently we have 4 judges on the felony criminal rotation in Minnehaha County. We have 4 judges on the civil rotation in Minnehaha County. We have 1 judge who is doing all of the abuse and neglect cases in Minnehaha as well as Lincoln County. 1 judge who does juvenile cases in Minnehaha County and Lincoln County. And then we have essentially a judge and a half identified for Lincoln County. The new plan, which is still in some final stages of development, particularly depending on who the governor's selections might be, would be to have the 2 judges in Lincoln County handle all of Lincoln County, including the juvenile and abuse and neglect cases. And then here in Minnehaha County, we will certainly be putting an additional judge on the felony criminal rotation. That's one that's seen a lot of compression lately. And, if you look at my calendar and all of the other felony judges, oftentimes we're double and triple booking things to get all of the cases in. So this will relieve some of that pressure. And then I'll have to figure out a way to balance the rest of the calendars to provide that relief for our specialty court judges. So the plan isn't finalized yet, but that's generally what we'll see. And those 2 additional judge resources will be housed in Minnehaha County.
All right. We do take public comment on this. Anybody from the public that would like to address this issue? All right. This was a briefing. Thank you, Judge. Appreciate you being here. Moving on. First reading and authorize the auditor to publish the notice of public hearing on May 7, 2024 for major amendment number 2402 to amend Mapleton Golf Plan Development District to allow 2 driveways onto Slip Up Creek Road. Good morning, Kevin.
Yes, I'm Kevin Hookman from the County Planning Department. Staff received this major amendment to amend the Mapleton Golf Plan Development District. The district was originally approved with a provision that requires only one driveway access to be allowed onto Slip Up Creek Road, which is the north side of the property. The petitioner has worked with the Highway Department as well as the City Streets Department to come up with a means and solution to allow a second driveway. And the language is provided there on the memo. The request allowing that second driveway does require this major amendment, which also amends the ordinance as such. The Joint Planning Commission met to hear the request on April 22nd. Both the county and the city planning commission voted unanimously to approve the major amendment. And this is the first reading of the amendment, and action should be taken to authorize the auditor to publish notice of public hearing. The public hearing to be scheduled on May 28th, 2024 at or after 5 p.m. At the Carnegie Town Hall. Is there any questions?
Commissioner Bleinberg.
Thank you. Was there public input given on this topic already, or what? Can you give us a summary of what that sounded like from the people that are impacted?
Sure. So the process for this plan development started with the original plan development, which required the one driveway. They went through then what's called a final development plan, and that's where most of the public input came through, and it was greatly discussed, the two driveways versus one. Neighbors did show up to that final development plan, and it was approved with the two driveways contingent on this being approved as a major amendment. At the hearing for this major amendment, one neighbor did show up, and there was questions about the spacing of driveways, but from everyone's understanding, the highway department suggested that location specifically. So.
Okay.
So was the request for two driveways coming from the applicant or from?
From the applicant.
Okay.
They want a driveway for the main entrance and then a driveway for a maintenance entrance
Okay.
as well.
Thank you. Commissioner Bender.
And I see that this is all contingent on the road remaining as it is. And so is the idea that once any road work is done on that stretch of road, that this just disappears and then we're back to square one?
Possibly. So if the road says, like, gets changed into like a split highway or has a median, the highway department can reevaluate that driveway and remove it, at which case the applicant would have to figure out either working with the one driveway or another means to allow the driveway.
Other questions? All right, we'll take public comment on this. Anybody from the public like to comment on this agenda item? All right, look for a motion to set the hearing date to, is it May 28th? Is that?
Yes.
Okay.
I'll make that motion.
Second.
Motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. All right, consider a motion to authorize the chair to sign the temporary construction easement and agreement between Minnehaha County and the city of Sioux Falls for communication equipment. Captain Bosman, good morning.
Good morning, Commissioners. Joe Bosman, Minnehaha County Sheriff's Office. This morning I have in front of you a construction easement, a temporary easement that would allow us, as part of our county radio infrastructure improvement, to begin some work, construction work at the West Baltic site. As a reminder, my memo might seem familiar to you, as we do have several sites that have multiple different agreements and processes needed to begin work. This one is focusing on the number 5, the tower site west of Baltic. That site is currently owned by the city of Sioux Falls. We are in work with the city to transfer that piece of property over to the county, but in the meantime, while that process is taking place, we are in prime construction season and don't want to miss windows of opportunity. So a construction easement has been drafted for us to allow to start beginning that work and get the process going.
Commission questions? Public comment? Turn to commission for action?
Make a motion to approve?
Second?
Motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Consider a motion to reclassify one full-time employee position within the sheriff's office from certified civil process server to deputy sheriff. Welcome back.
Thank you. In front of you, we have a request to reclassify one full-time position within our sheriff's office that is currently coded as a certified civil process server. This individual that currently occupies this position has announced their retirement. They've been with us for 10 years. Back when this position was created, I think it was a way for us to be creative in how we can utilize a person that retired from the Sioux Falls Police Department, and we could maintain their certification and utilize them within some component in our civil division. Over the last 10 years, many things have changed, including the volume of our civil processes that we do, including the number of lockouts that the courts have ordered, protection orders, and anything that is more high risk has greatly increased our volume in our sheriff's office. So the individual that holds this position, or this position itself, I should say, is something that is being used less and less for the volume of stuff that is increasing in our sheriff's office. Those processes that are those protection orders and lockouts, seizing vehicles as part of court-ordered judgments of executions, are something that we want to employ and trust our deputy sheriffs, who have the higher quality training and education and standards, equipment to take care of those processes. So at this point, with this individual retiring, we are looking to reclassify this position to a deputy sheriff position, allowing us to then fully utilize more components of that position.
Okay. Questions from the commission? Nobody's losing their job, so it's a good thing, so.
Correct, yes.
All righty. Public comment. Look for a motion to approve.
So move.
Second?
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Thank you, Captain. Consider a motion to authorize the chair to sign amendment number 3 to the Summit Food Service Partnership Agreement for the jail service. Morning, Warden.
Good morning, Commissioners. Mike Mattson, Warden of the Jail. I'm in front of you today with a new amendment for our food service contract with Summit Foods. This amendment reflects a 4.5 increase. This is our annual process with Summit. The regular meal price currently is $2.38. It's increasing by a dime to $2.48. So requesting your authorization and signature on the amendment.
Questions of the warden? How many meals do you serve a day?
Well, if you average 500, just say 500, we're looking at 1,500 meals a day.
Do the math. All right. All right. Public comment. Commission action.
Make a motion to approve?
Second?
Motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Consider a motion to authorize the Highway Department to purchase metal culverts through Beadle County contract exempt from bidding process under South Dakota Codified Law 518A22-3. Good morning, Steve.
Morning, Commissioners. Steve Crowan, Highway Superintendent. Every year, the Highway Department budgets funds to assist townships with their culvert replacements. We're asking your permission to buy up to $100,000 of corrugated culverts from True North Steel and Huron to assist the townships.
Questions from the commission? When do you decide if it's a metal or a concrete?
These are, Mr. Chair, these are requests from the townships prefer metal. They're much more cheaper than concrete and they're easier to install.
Okay, makes sense. All right. Public comment on this item. Look for a motion.
Move for approval.
Second.
Motion and a second. Please call the roll.
Benega?
Aye.
Kipley?
Aye.
Blindberg?
Aye.
Bender?
Aye.
Karski?
Aye. Motion carries. Moving on to the highlight of the show. The State's Attorney's Office Annual Presentation. Good morning, Daniel.
Good morning, Mr. Chair. Thank you for the opportunity to be here again. I greatly enjoy it. Also glad that Maggie got here so that all of you could get quality legal advice if needed. It was a good year last year. As we prepare this presentation, it really gave the State's Attorney's Office a chance to talk through our goals, kind of look, how do we want to present information to the commission? You know, what are we trying to do to keep the community safe? Really, there's three things that I wanted to talk about. I want to talk about how we are providing that high-skilled, good prosecution. What are we doing to recruit, retain, and train the people in the office? We certainly have had struggles finding applicants for positions, and so want to make sure that we are dedicated to that. Also, are we using that taxpayer money wisely? And so those are three things that I'm probably going to end up talking about year after year. It was a good year in 2023. When you look at the role of the state's attorney, there's really three areas in the office. The state's attorney is that chief prosecutor for adult and criminal law violations, right? We also are legal counsel representing abused and neglect children. We're representing the state in that, making sure that those children are in safe places where they can grow up, where they're free from that abuse and free from that harm. As this body knows, the state's attorney also provides that legal advice to county department heads, whether appointed or elected, and to each of you. I am proud of the civil division. Eric Bogue, Maggie Gillespie, Amy Folsom, Katie Dunn, Judy Weirkamp, Mike Thompson, they're all doing that job very, very well. And just having confidence that the legal advice representation is available to those departments and quality gives me peace of mind. As we look at our budget in a glance, this is not a surprise to any of the commissioners. I hope it's not. 93% of the state's attorney's budget is salary and benefits. So it's people, right? And that's a cool thing in the county. We have hardworking, skilled, quality people who are here. And that's reflected in our budgets. That's not unique to the state's attorney's office. Certainly when you look at the county, it's a place where government is getting things done, and it's that boots on the ground. And so I guess that's the good news for this commission. When you are investing in people, you are investing in good government in Minnehaha County. I want to talk about who we are in the office. We have 38 lawyers, 37 deputy state's attorneys, again, spread throughout each of those divisions: adult, juvenile, criminal prosecution, abuse and neglect, civil division. They're hardworking people. 31 support staff, 4 paralegals. They do some of the work during criminal cases. A lot of work is done after criminal cases in our paralegal group. We have 7 victim witness assistants. They are assisting the victims of crime, making sure that they understand it and are afforded their Marcy's rights under the Constitution. They are our face to those victims. They have a very difficult job because you're encountering people who have been abused over and over. They've been the victim of horrible crimes, and those 7 victim witness assistants do a really good job of connecting them with resources in our community, making sure that they are cared for during that process. We have 11 legal office assistants. They're coming in early every morning. They're getting the paperwork filed before court, making sure that when we are charging individuals that we're doing that in the right way, and making sure that the court clerks can then get that stuff input for the judges so that when we go to court, they've done their job so that we can do ours. And so they do a fantastic job in that area. I'm going to skip over investigators, and you'll see why in a moment. We have 3 digital discovery technicians, again, with phones, cameras. When a crime is committed, there is just a tremendous amount of digital evidence that needs to be collected, needs to be organized, shared with defense attorneys. We have 3 people who are doing that very well. Their organization makes it so that the lawyers in court know that what they have has been shared, and it's quality evidence. We have an office manager, Kim Colwell. Last year she came up. She continues to just be a rock star in the office, has done a nice job moving the office forward through her organization as well. We have 2 diversion coordinators, adult and juvenile. Diversion coordination, they are helping us save money through preventing cases from going to court. That's a good thing. And then we'll also talk about the juvenile diversion coordinator and some of the money that's actually bringing into the county. The investigators, they help us when law enforcement gives us a case. If we have follow-up, they can do a lot of that legwork. There's one that I want to recognize. Tom Rabb is here. I've tried really hard as state's attorney to not just boss people around. Tom didn't want to be here today, so I told him, you don't have a choice. You have to come up here. But I wanted to recognize him. He's on the juvenile team. He does digital discovery for them. He's their investigator, and he's their victim witness assistant. So really, he does 3 separate roles. I'm probably selling him short in that area, but he's been with the county for 25 years. He's retiring in September. He is what everyone in the county should strive to be. Hardworking, he's dependable. It's a thankless job at times, and he did not want to be here. He doesn't like public recognition, right? He likes coming to work, doing his job, and he leaves a legacy and a lasting impact on Minnehaha County, and so it's hard to see him go. I haven't given up trying to convince him not to go, but I think his mind is made up. He's going to spend time with his wife, Darla. He's going to spend time doing what he likes to do. He loves antiquing, woodworking. He's a man of many hobbies, and so it's really cool that he's here, and I've really appreciated just the grace that he's shown me as I've acclimated to my role, and he's kept the juvenile division well-staffed, and so we will miss him, but he certainly deserves recognition. So
Those
Tom,
are-
you can sneak out if you want, but I appreciate you.
Extremely high accolades, Daniel. Congratulations.
We talked about some of that work that's done by those individuals. If you look at the red, those are tasks that the state's attorney's office has to complete that doesn't really pull in any of those other areas, whether that's the court, defense, and that's a good thing, right? We're doing that work well. Certainly the civil division is creating quality decision-making within the county. If you look at some of those other red bubbles, discovery, right? We talked about the digital discovery technicians. They're working to get a lot of that evidence and provide it to defense. The charging and grand jury teams, that's work that's all being done before a case ever sees the courtroom. And they're doing that well. That takes up a tremendous amount of our budget. It's about 25% of our budget is spent on tasks that are just unique to the state's attorney's office. The judgment preparation at the end. 2 of our 4 paralegals are spending time making sure that the judgments, which are very important documents, they're the documents that ultimately send someone to the penitentiary, right? When a judge has ultimately sentenced after that case is done, that document needs to be prepared. It needs to be prepared accurately. It reflects that the judge advised that individual of their rights, that that person waived them. It's laying out that sentence. It's saying this is exactly what your sentence was. Here's the credit that you get. It's triggering, once that document is signed by the judge, that triggers the start of the appeal period for those individuals. So those are very important documents. We've got 2 paralegals who are doing that full time. The victim witness assistants, again, those individuals are shepherding those victims through our criminal justice system. So there is a lot of work that is being done in the state's attorney's office that isn't seen. It's not really public facing in the courtroom, but is being done well. Again, for our salary allocations, about 25% of our budget is being pulled away from that adult prosecution in the courtroom that you think of when you think of a state's attorney, but certainly is important work. 2023, I said it was a good year. We saw crime statistics kind of follow national trends. There was one caveat, and that's the bad news. As we saw our crime stay about the same numbers-wise, we did see our felonies continue to increase. Looking at the UJS report from 2023, of all the filings statewide, they had about 22% of those were felony filings. In Minnehaha County, that number was up to 36%. Those cases take the most time. They take victim witness assistance. They take that grand jury hearing. And so as we see that trend where felonies continue to be a larger share, that is a harder type of crime to prosecute just from a resource standpoint. We had brought a bill in the legislature that had tried to address some of that growing pull of resources. It would have alleviated grand jury proceedings for preliminary hearing proceedings for some of those lower level felonies when individuals are out of custody. That was supported by sheriffs, chiefs, attorney general, state's attorneys. It was defeated in committee, got a lot of pushback from the defense bar, but we'll continue to look for creative ways to try and address that rising crime area. That bill alone, if it had passed, would have saved Minnehaha County in our office $200,000. So I think there are things that we can do, but as we see felony caseload continue to grow, just know that that means that there's that charging, that grand jury, those separate hearings, that if we aren't presenting to a grand jury, that's going to start taking up time in court, going to start taking up defense attorney time. So we're trying to keep that at grand jury. I do have concerns just as that continues to grow that we will run out of time or we'll have to start calling more grand jurors in, which I'd really like to avoid. We had one murder last year that was very, it's a tragedy, right? You have one person who was killed by another, and so I don't want to sell that short. It's always important to remember that there are people behind that, but that was way down from what we typically see in Minnehaha County. That has created relief within the office. When you have a homicide case, in my office you have at least 2 lawyers working those cases. You have a victim witness assistant who's assigned to those cases. You have paralegals doing work. You have hours and hours of digital discovery downloading. Like, they are very time intensive cases and they should be treated that way. And so when you have 1 as compared to 7, that makes a big difference. It creates bandwidth in the office. We were able to really work hard on other cases because we didn't have that churning of more murder cases. It allowed us to get some very good results in court. I want to highlight 3 of them. I want to make sure that when lawyers in the office are doing good work that I am telling people about that. In State v. Castamore in 2021, that individual had killed his 8-week-old son, right? We prosecuted that case well, had a sentencing in April. He got 100 years with 10 suspended, so he will serve 90 years in prison for a horrible crime. In State v. Pettigrew in 2022, defendant was released from jail after an arson case at a hotel. He went on a stabbing spree, attacking innocent strangers. Good prosecution, ended up with him getting 85 years with 15 years suspended, so he'll serve a lengthy prison sentence. State v. Franklin, the defendant brought hundreds of fentanyl pills in our community. Everyone should know how dangerous that drug is. It leads to overdoses in our community. It's harmful. Good prosecution, multidisciplinary effort, got him sentenced to a decade in prison, right? These cases and the work that people in the office are doing on these cases are leading to our community being safer. And so they're certainly worthy of recognition. Recruit, train, and retain, we talked about that. We'd have turnover earlier this year, end of last year. Again, the people in the office are viewed as talented prosecutors. They're highly sought after. We had the state of South Dakota hiring 2 of them, the U.S. Attorney's Office hiring another. Again, happy for individuals to get good opportunities, happy for them to stay in the office as well. So we are looking to make sure that we're recruiting those replacements. We had started and partnered with the School of Law down in Vermillion to teach a practicum class. The dean was kind enough to let us teach that in Minnehaha County, so we didn't have to travel down to Vermillion. Last year, we had 3 students who took that class. They all did very well. One of them became a prosecutor down in Texas. One of them I wanted to hire, but the public defender's office in town beat me to her, so she's going to start there later this summer. One of them had started in Pennington County. And so I was disappointed that we weren't able to benefit from those three. The good news for me, bad news for Pennington County, and Laura Retzel reminds me of that. We were able to poach Sam Alvine back from Pennington County. So one of the individuals who took the class ended up coming back. We had that relationship with him. When we had an opening, I was able to reach out to him and get him to come back. This year we had 9 students. 9 was a lot. I think we're going to ramp that back probably to 6. But getting them into the office, if they apply for openings, and we do have openings, and I do see some of those names that I recognize, that's a great thing for us because we know what their work ethic is like. They know what the office is like. We know if they're going to fit in already because they've been doing it for a semester. So that prosecution practicum has been a good thing for Minnehaha County. I think will continue to just be a nice recruiting and training opportunity for us. We are going to try and emphasize training within our office. Right now, we send lawyers to the South Dakota State's Attorneys Association annual conference. It happened last week. We had about 19 lawyers go. It's 2.5 days of training. It focuses on Wednesday, you have a lot of DUI intensive training through the Department of Public Safety. Thursday and Friday, you had a variety of topics. It's really good to get out there, have just that dedicated time to that training. I would like to see some of those opportunities come to Minnehaha County and let us host some of those. We have a training on Friday over drug recognition in DUIs. We've invited Minnehaha County AG's office, all these other offices to come and enjoy that training with us, learn with us, and I think it's good for us to be able to host that. And so I thank the commission for the investment in the space, right? As we remodel, it feels like a long time ago now, but that was last year that we finished that. Those spaces have given us the opportunity to have these trainings in-house. That saves us from having to travel to West River, and so that's a good thing. And so those investments that each of you made are paying off. Along those lines, we have our vault, and I guess talking about the same thing that Judge Howland talked about. We have a lot of old files in there. My dream is hopefully by the end of my second term is to have that vault digitized. We have a lot of files in there. We have some in the jail as well. And turn that into a training space, an area where we can have some of those simulations that are so important to just crafting who you are as a prosecutor. We've begun working in the office, trying to test and figure out what will it look like to actually digitize those files. We started just with a handful trying to gauge, okay, how much time are we actually talking? We had one individual, was the first guinea pig for that project. It was taking about 3 minutes to file. We kind of honed some processes. It takes us about a minute to file. That's a lot of time. It's a lot of, it's gonna be a lot of work. We're gonna try and get there, but it is a challenge, and I'd really like that space. So I think that there is reason to be hopeful. Some of the, just that use of taxpayer money, we talked about juvenile diversion. Last year, we had a fantastic year with juvenile diversion. If you look at 2022, we had 279 total diversions, 232 were successful. Last year, we had 447, 384 were successful. The commission knows that these diversions are reimbursed through the state. It was $250 per successful diversion. Now that was pro rata share, and so there was a cap at the money that the state had put in there, and so counties weren't actually getting $250 per successful diversion. But the governor supported increasing that amount per successful diversion and really put her influence behind increasing and pushing for successful juvenile diversion. That amount was increased to $750, and then they also increased the pot of money that it's being withdrawn from. So even with the pro rata share, I anticipate that we will end up getting more. So seeing those numbers increase, Elizabeth is doing a great job. Those are successful, an 85 success rate. That's a great number, and so I'm just happy with the work that she's doing.
How do you define a successful diversion?
Yeah, that's defined differently across the state. How Minnehaha County looks at it is we're making sure they're not committing new crime. There are some places that would say, okay, if you come in on a drug offense and we set the terms of your diversion, and you don't commit another drug offense, even if you're committing other offenses, as long as it's not drug, we'll define that as successful. Minnehaha County looks at it and says, well, not only do we not want you committing drug offenses, we don't want you committing theft offenses, assault offenses. So we're looking for that, truly keeping their nose clean, staying out of trouble. If there's restitution, they're paying those amounts. If there's community service, they're completing those hours. Whatever the terms of those diversions are, if it's going through treatment, they're getting all that done within a very short period of time. That's how we're defining that success.
Okay, thank you.
I talked about victim witness assistance. In the last year, and certainly we've had other conversations as we're trying to re-up some of those grants. We've had the victim witness assistant and the attorney who are grant funded, making sure that they are up and running. They're working with Sioux Falls PD, the Minnehaha County Sheriff's Office, to identify those high-risk offenders. They're working with community partners, the South Dakota Network Against Family Violence, making sure that individuals who need interpreters have those through Voices Through Peace. And so I'm excited for that to continue and just to see that pay dividends. Again, we're also working with partners on the other side of the state, the Attorney General's office, making sure that we have that statewide fatality review team, making sure that when those cases get to that point that we hope they don't, did we do everything that we could, and was that done in the right way? Office reorganization, listening to Judge Howman, we'll see how long this lasts. Our felony prosecution, we had people that were burning out. The way that it was working is you had a lawyer that was taking a specific type of felony. And so if they were doing crimes against persons, they would have crimes against persons cases that were assigned to Judge Song, Judge Hanson, Judge Sabers, and Judge Howman. What would happen is they would end up prepping jury trial with Judge Song one week, having jury trial, and then immediately prepping one with Judge Hanson, then one with Judge Sabers, one with Judge Howman. And so there was no chance to get your head above water. And so what we did is we reorganized the office so that now we have lawyers who are assigned to Judge Song, right? Certainly his trial weeks will be heavier for those lawyers, but once they complete that trial week, they've got 4 weeks until they have the next jury trial. So it gives them the chance to breathe, to make sure that their cases are organized, to touch base with those victims, prep with those witnesses. That's a good thing. We started that April 22nd. We had been working to implement that since early this year. We also carved out a charging team, so we have lawyers in the office who will get all the felony cases every morning. They charge them out. They're starting to present those for a grand jury. Part of that charging team, and this is a sacrifice that we've made in the office, when we are making those initial appearances, we are trying to get those reports to defense attorneys on day one of those cases. That's highly unusual. It's a stress on the office, but it's something that the court appreciates, the defense attorneys appreciate, so we're getting discovery to them quicker. That charging grand jury team, again, bears a lot of that responsibility, making sure that stuff is in those cases when they're charging them out, right? It's helpful to have that stuff into PBK and make sure that we can share that easily. Digital Discovery's working to try and get that evidence in there. That charging grand jury team, again, they are going to be specializing in making sure that they are charging cases out correctly, making sure we don't have to re-indict as more evidence comes in. It's important work, and we've got a good team there. So I'm hoping that we can show that this is effective. It sure looks like it's working, and I think it's a better organization. As we see more judges added to the felony rotation, that will present a challenge, not only for my office, but for the PDO and public advocate's office as well. If there's another judge within another courtroom, that it creates needed time. Questions? I just talked way too long.
You have a lot to cover, Daniel, and so often we think about you dealing with just the bad guys, but in reality, for every bad guy, there's a victim, and a lot of times multiple victims.
Can I add one more thing?
You
meant
bet.
to throw this in. Our cases, our total filing stayed really close to the same. It was about 10,225 cases this year. One of the areas that I really saw jump was the obstructing and resisting arrest. So that obstruction of law enforcement through force, the resisting arrest. And so I appreciate this commission as you look at the National Correctional Officers Week, right? That matters because the job that they're doing, last year we saw a huge increase in just the attitude of individuals being placed under arrest towards law enforcement. And certainly jailers see that, law enforcement officers on the street. And so I wanted to mention that, so I apologize for getting to the end without bringing that up. But that's important recognition for them, because even as things stay relatively the same, you'll see spikes. And for some reason last year there was a huge spike in obstructing and resisting. And so not a good thing for our community. We want people who respect law enforcement and understand that they're there for a very important role. But as they are being mistreated, you know, that takes a toll on them, you know, and that's why I think you see a lot of turnover there as well. Sorry.
No, I was just saying that, you know, this commission funds your staff, your victim witness assistants, and just hearing about the work they do is, you know, critical to making sure that you're able to, I mean, you're right, 2 more judges means more cases. We're growing as a community, and more prosecutors, more defenders. So yeah, that's public safety's a huge portion of our budget, almost 70%, and growing fast. So, other commission questions?
Mr. Chair,
Mr. Kipley.
I appreciate your perspective on people, and if you take Minnehaha County as a whole, your department, public defenders, public advocate, maybe you could make the argument that we're the biggest law firm in the state. So recruitment and retention of good quality attorneys. I was just wondering if you could expand upon any other relationships with down in Vermilion or any other law schools. What else do you kind of see as your feeder pipeline to recruiting and retaining more people in the future?
I'm on a steering committee right now. There's a push for a public service pathway to bar admission. And what the law school and UGS is starting to recognize, it, and other people as well, is that we have huge public service needs across the state. And so looking for ways to encourage people to a really fulfilling career. And so I'm part of a committee right now that's looking at how do we set that up, or what is a way for us to be successful in doing that. And there's a lot of work to be done trying to figure out, okay, if we are alleviating the need for bar passage, how do we know that we have competent lawyers who are serving South Dakota, serving Minnehaha County? And so working through that, glad I'm at that table. There's a lot of challenges to be figured out with that. But if that alternative pathway is created, it could turn into a feeder, right? There would be a lot of recruitment for individuals saying, hey, I think that this is a career that you could really enjoy. And so that would probably be more hands-on in the law school. Certainly the dean would help us identify good people, but there are challenges with that. Doing that, anytime I'm talking to a lawyer, I like to talk to them about what they're enjoying about their work, kind of start selling them on public service. Again, everyone in the Minnehaha County State's Attorney's Office, they work incredibly hard, but they can go home at night and know that there was a lot of meaning to that. No offense to the private attorneys who are making more money than me, but I prefer this service, right? I prefer this role, and I'm always happy to try and poach from them.
And Mr. Chair, if I could have one more, I appreciate you being an outstanding role model and as an alum of the university down there. I hope you continue to have success recruiting down there. My other question was just on the, I feel like this is that $250 to $750 for the juvenile successful diversion reimbursement, I think is a game changer that we might need some strategic thought towards. And as we've invested in a $50 million bond to build a new juvenile detention center, it would be great. I don't know if I still see Jamie here today, but our correctional leadership, I think they would agree that we'd like these places empty. as much as money as we spend on it, we'd still consider it a success if we could keep more juveniles out of that facility rather than housed in a new, larger facility. So what kind of community partners, what other stakeholders do we need to bring if we're just thinking from a public policy perspective? How do we? I mean, you're having success now. I'm not saying you're not having any success, but how do we take that to the next level to kind of correspond to a tripling of the investment from the state? Do we need to triple our efforts in some way?
Well, I think the answer to that is yes. We're always looking for partners in the community to set up programs, make sure that our programs are running well. We have our diversion coordinator is meeting with a potential partner tomorrow morning to explore whether they could set up another program, something that we could send people to. We've struggled with that in the past as we've had programs, whether it's through the Boy Scouts, keeping them staffed, not us staffing them, but making sure that they have employees who can receive individuals who are ripe for diversion. And so we constantly have meetings with individuals. It's hard in a community to have a program that probably isn't going to make you a lot of money. I think that there are templates for how to do that successfully. I think other counties have said, okay, as we're bringing this diversion money in, can we earmark that and start putting that back out and kind of turn it into a self-sustaining program? So some counties do that well. We put that money in our general fund, and certainly we use that well. But there are opportunities to say, okay, can we earmark X amount and say, okay, this is what we're going to use to invest in diversion programs that then let us send those children to get diversion.
All right, no other commission questions? Open it up for public comment. Anybody like to any public comment on the state's attorney's presentation? Okay. Moving on then, we are now at the public comment on non-commission agenda items. Good morning, sir.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman, and commissioners and assistants. Excuse me. A couple of us will have something to say about history, and I have a kind of a relatively unique position to offer some insight. Dealing with the fairgrounds, some of you may or may not be aware that the Expo building was built for indoor football, and it was divided so that it became useful because we did not proceed to use indoor football in Minnehaha County. Doing such, that gave us the Expo building a life to be used in 3 different areas and sometimes all at the same time. We did have one group of people who used the fairgrounds, Lifelight. We kind of had an end run with them. We did some things for them on an annual basis. They asked that certain things be changed, trees cut down. We said, hey, we need a contract. We want a 5-year contract because we need to know where we're at. They need to know where they were at. They said to us, like, well, we'll do it a week from Friday. And they were, then on Tuesday, a week from when they said they would, they announced they were going out to Wildwater West, which was kind of one of those things that happens, and it's one of those unforeseen things, but we lived through it. There's as much land there as Disneyland has in California, and the unique position that I would offer is everybody here has given money to different organizations, churches, fundraisers, and all that sort of thing. But how many of you have given something of substantial size and value for the public use? And I'm in a position now where I'm dealing with 30 acres of land. That's not big in some sense, but it is in this particular area that I'm working with. And so when you deal with Knife River, you're talking about people who are using consumers who are taking this and they're going to convert it into something that's going to benefit a smaller number of people. When you deal with the commission, you look at it from the perspective of what is now, but please take a look and talk to people who are giving substantial amounts of things to the public. whether it's the Area Foundation, whatever, they give so that things go into perpetuity because it can't be duplicated. They liked what they had, they gave it to the people, they want the people to enjoy it for the extended period of time. When you deal with all of these things that you're talking about, you talk with Knife River today, you're on the commission today, but you can't deal with or talk to the person who was the donor or donee of that particular property. They had in mind that it should be enjoyed or given to the public, whether you're talking about Sherman Park, McKinnon Park, or any of the other parks that people give. Someday they're going to be gone, and then most of them are. But they don't have a voice any longer. What little voice they have is on paper. They don't have a presence to do such. So I would suggest that when you get down to your final decisions, you always give those people something to do, because you can't undo an error. Well, I had the opportunity to be on the commission during what I'd like to call the golden age. We had the structure over here, the Dakota Iron Building. And there was a vote to, should we keep it and turn it into office building, or should we tear it down? Well, I was in the minority. They spent an inordinate amount of time tearing it down because it was a better building than they thought. And Jack Rentschler, whom some of you may know, 2 years later says, you know, I think we made a mistake. Well, once you make a decision, you want to make sure that you're going to do it appropriately so that you don't have a wish that it was reversible, because when something is screwed up, you cannot screw it. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Colby. If you haven't signed in and plan on public comment, please do so. Anybody else for public comment? Good morning.
How does this work?
Kim will turn it on for you. Give it a second to fire up. And turn it 90 degrees, other way. There you go.
Okay.
Keep turning, no, there you go.
So, hi, I'm Kathy Brachtelsbauer, and I was here a few weeks ago, and I mentioned about that I'm encouraging you to be a strong voice statewide in opposing Amendment F on the ballot this November. It's the amendment where the state would be allowed to take away people's Medicaid if they don't report enough work hours. And so after I told you about that, I realized that I had left out some important facts. And so I wrote you a letter, and then I decided, wait, I shouldn't send this letter because I made those comments that I was here in public. And so my additional comments of things that I had left out that should have been mentioned should also be in public. So that's why I came today and brought the letter to make this in public. So what I had mentioned was that this idea had been tried back when the feds had not yet decided to disallow that, and it was tried in Arkansas. And I mentioned that 18,000 people lost their Medicaid, and I should have said that was a fourth of all the people that were on this work requirement program. But what also I didn't mention is that people studied this afterwards and discovered that of all the people that lost their Medicaid coverage, 95% of them should not have lost it because they were either already working or they were in some category of situation that should have been exempt. So that's something that was very important that I should have mentioned. And I also should have mentioned that the stated purpose of the program to get people into work was not, that goal was not realized. There was no demonstrable impact on people getting employment. So I wanted to bring that letter, and I wanted to make those comments in public. Okay, I have one other item.
Please.
If I may. Put this under here. Turn it so that you see this. Okay. I must not have the knack of putting it in the right place, but you can see this. Okay. There's an exhibit at the Old Courthouse Museum right now, and it's been there a year, so I hope you've all seen it. I wanted to mention it especially because when I was here before, someone, I think it was Commissioner Kipley mentioned that some people on the commission are big in the Air Force type enthusiasts. And so what everybody should know is that back when the Army Air Force was all one branch, not separate, we had this incredible thing happening here in Sioux Falls during World War II. And I hope you all know about it. I hope you have seen the exhibit. And the trouble is that a lot of people in Sioux Falls do not even know that this happened or that it happened here. It's such a huge part of World War II history, of Sioux Falls history, made an impact on the way things are now in our city, and not everybody knows. So I'm hoping you'll go to that exhibit. And what I'm here to ask you to do is to see if there's some way to make this exhibit somewhere permanent in our city. Not necessarily all the artifacts they've got there, little banners and stuff, but the basic pictures that are so incredible that show the big area of the city that was covered by this airbase, this technical school, whatever it's called, it's called different things. But there's a picture that shows the lines of the barracks. I mean, there were, like, the exhibit says that 45,000 U.S. service people came through Sioux Falls and stayed a number of weeks or even months being trained in radio communications. And all the flights of our airplanes over Europe, half of them, the navigator in there was trained at this airbase. And it's just a huge impact on World War II and on Sioux Falls. So I'm thinking there's got to be some place where the basics of this exhibit, the basic pictures, big map, before and after pictures, and photos of the airbase could be put someplace where people could see those. And I've been asking several people, nobody has quite the final perfect solution for where it should go, but somebody said, well, a lot of people come to the county building, so I'll just bring that up here and see if maybe there's some place where people go that they would see this. So I'm putting that on your lap, if you would please try to help figure out where we can put the basics of this exhibit, where people in Sioux Falls can find out about our history and the contribution that has been made through our city. Thank you.
Thank you. I would add to that a great number of those airmen perished in Europe, unfortunately. So.
And some came back and moved back here and lived here and married local people, and you run into them too. Thank you.
Thank you. Kathy? All right. Any additional public comment? Seeing none, we'll move it on to commission liaison reports. Anybody been working overtime? Commissioner Bleinberg?
I can just mention next week, Leaders of Tomorrow is, there's a graduation ceremony for the leadership cohort and the justice impacted cohort, and I believe that's going to get us over 700 graduates from that program in our community. So quite an achievement in just a few years.
All righty. Commissioner Bender.
I just would say I've spent a lot of time in the last 2 weeks meeting with my different liaisons about budget. People have been doing a lot of hard work on budgeting for next year, and no doubt it'll be challenging like it is every year, but I really appreciate all the time and energy that staff put into thinking hard about the budget that then comes forward to us and that we'll be working on in the next month.
Very much. All right.
Mr. Chair, just one brief plug for our fire and EMS and law enforcement crews. I think we saw last night with the weather that we're in tornado season, and so it's timely that our rural fire and EMS is doing a training exercise tonight. I don't know that I'm going to be able to make it to watch them in action or not, depending on conflicts with a 6-year-old and 4-year-old that also have to go to ballet class, so I'm juggling a couple things. But would like to see some of our, I think the scenario planning that they're talking about doing is a response to a tornado. So we saw some of those tornado warnings last night. So it's very timely training for rural fire and EMS. But I think that's the only report I have. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Non-action commission discussion. I have one item. It's unfortunately National Teacher Appreciation Day, and I say unfortunately, I think it should be at least a month, because one day isn't enough. I have a daughter-in-law who's a teacher in the public school system, grade school teacher, and the work that teachers do, I think we're all aware of. So just a shout out to teachers on National Teacher Appreciation Day. And I think I want to bring Tom up for one item also.
Thank you, Commission Chair, and good morning, Commissioners. Tom Greco, Commission Administrative Officer. It's my pleasure to introduce the new face that's up here, our new Assistant Commission Administrative Officer, Meredith Jarko. She comes to us with a Master in Public Administration. She's been here since last Monday and has seen a great deal of what the county is already doing. So she's dived in head first, going to be a great asset to the County Commission and certainly to the county in general. So I would like to just formally welcome Meredith and wish her the best of luck in these coming months as she continues to learn how the county operates. Thanks.
Yeah, you mentioned the MPA. Congratulations. I think that's a very recent designation. Yes. So.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you, Tom, and welcome, Meredith. So, any other non-action discussion? We do have an executive session, so I'll look for a motion to enter into executive session for the purposes of South Dakota Codified Law 125(2), 134, and 6.
So moved.
Second.
Motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. We will enter executive session. I think the room next door is open now or not? In here, okay.